you. Okay, it's 5:31. Let us go ahead and call our June, and we'll make up for, what is it, April, May meetings by calling our June meeting to order. Welcome everybody back to having live meetings at Cherry Hills Village. It's my pleasure to be able to have our meeting in person.
So that it picks
A
up.
couple of notes of precautionary thing. Obviously, the chair and commission in the city take social distancing and protecting all of us very seriously. Let's try and maintain 6 feet between all of us. Please make sure you have your mask on all the times you're inside the building. With that said, we will go ahead and begin. Tonight, we have a wonderful opportunity to thank one of our outgoing commissioners as well as welcome a new commissioner. We'll get to that in just a little bit on the agenda, but for now, I want to make sure everybody who wants to speak has had an opportunity to sign in. And secondly, let's go ahead and call our meeting to order and start with the roll call first.
Chelsea Scott. Here. Kate Murphy.
Here.
Fred Wolf.
Here.
Rob Eber.
Present.
Aaron Gradinsky.
Here.
Stephanie Dahl.
Here.
Tori Leviton.
Here. I think next on our agenda is our pledge of allegiance. So let's go ahead and start there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a note for fellow commissioners and everybody who's speaking, because we are broadcasting through Zoom tonight, my understanding, Emily, is you would like us all to have our microphones on when we speak, but turn them off when we are not speaking so that it doesn't cause interference with the people who are trying to listen on Zoom.
That's correct. So to be heard, you'll need to use your microphone, and then if you could mute, make sure it's muted afterwards, so there's not a lot of feedback. We really appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay. Next on our agenda item is public participation, limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Should you have more than 5 minutes, we're going to ask you to.
Oh, I'm sorry. We had a special event before that.
We're going to squeeze you in before public part. We're not squeeze you in. At this point, it's our pleasure to go ahead and thank Peter Sutherland for his tenure on the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Commission. Peter, you've been an absolutely fabulous member to have on the commission. You have served your commission in your village very, very honorably. You have attended all of the different events that we have been a part of, and frankly, you've been a large part of many of the events that we've had in planning, participating, and making sure that they went to an absolutely outstanding service on behalf of the community. We want to thank you. Ordinarily, we'd all come down and we would thank you by huddling around you, shaking your hand, and take a picture close up. Please understand that we are not able to do that, but that doesn't in no way reflect that we care any less about you, and want to thank you with the absolute utmost thanks that we can give you. And on behalf of the commission, on behalf of the village, we thank you very much for all your service. We know that you have a new motorhome in your family, or a motor coach in your family. That gives you wonderful opportunities now to continue to take it and park it at each of the different trailheads, so that now in your free time, not as a commissioner, you are now able to get in-depth feeling and understanding for absolutely all of the trails, which we know you've walked all of them anyway. But nonetheless, now you can detail study every one of them and continue to come as an active member of the public to all of our meetings and continue to have great involvement on behalf of the village.
No pressure.
So you may be gone, but you certainly are not forgotten, and we want to make sure that we thank you. And I want to turn over to all the other members in case they have an opportunity to thank you as well.
Yeah. Thank you, one and all. It's been a pleasure and actually a lot of fun serving on the commission with everyone. It is a great service you all do to the village and some of its greatest assets. So I'm very pleased to have been asked to be on the commission and enjoyed my 3 years, absolutely. And I'm willing to volunteer. I don't know that I'll be the data gatherer in our COVID capsule, as we call it, but absolutely available, and I would welcome you to call on me should volunteers be needed for something or whatever. I want to stay
Thank you.
engaged and fully participate. And staff, thanks so much. Pamela, it's just been, you guys are an unbelievable support to all of us, and I certainly appreciate it very much. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
We have a
you so
wonderful
much.
plaque for you that's in front of you. We have put it on your table already so that we don't have to come within 6 feet to hand it to you. But thank you very much for all of your wonderful service on behalf of the village and the PTRC. We will miss having you up on the diet.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Fred. Keep the gray hair going, buddy.
At this point, let's go ahead and move to our public participation portion of the agenda. First on our list, I have, please excuse me if I don't pronounce your name properly, Eric Jamlin, 8 Blackman Road. If you could please go ahead and introduce yourself and put your name on the record for us.
Yes, is this on?
Press the, there you go.
There you go. Thank you. Yes, my name is Eric Jamrich. I live at 8 Blackmore Road. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'd like to speak to you today about some concerns the community has about the process in place of requesting, accepting, and integrating input of the public for the Quincy Farm project. I understand that this isn't the Quincy Farm Committee, but as this body ultimately approves the work of the Quincy Farm Committee. And as we're told that the volunteer members of the Quincy Farm Committee cannot determine and control their own agenda, we have to assume that the agenda and processes are to some extent controlled by Parks and Rec. Communication seems to be very poor between the community and the Quincy Farm Committee. Until recently, almost no one in my neighborhood, which abuts Quincy Farm, was really aware of the decisions being made and choices being made regarding the project. There's also no apparent mechanism for discussion with the community and no mechanism for dealing with input when it does occur. This leads to frustration when comments are called for, made, and then repeatedly ignored without discussion or explanation. I know it's frustrating to be given big complaints like these to deal with. I therefore like to focus on just one specific issue. Initially, there was an open house, I guess on January 21st, the public was invited to comment on a preliminary plan. On that site plan, people were encouraged to put little sticky notes for their comments. One of the comments there on the fire pit was one about safety. This made sense to me, and I included it and a number of other comments that in a letter that was sent by my neighbor, Diane Tully, and myself, expressing concern about multiple issues. This included fire pit and safety. I then reiterated this in person February 18th at the Quincy Farm Committee meeting. So far as I could tell, no discussion, at least was with me, was made about it. On March 12th, this committee met, and I believe you, Chairman Eber, were somewhat surprised to see a fire pit on the plan, saying that fires in general were prohibited in all the parks in Cherry Hills Village. There was some note made to look into this to see whether this would be allowed or not. On March 26th, there was another virtual Quincy Farms Committee meeting. No discussion was made of this issue at all. No apparent concern about safety was brought up. The master plan or a revised site plan was put up in April. Again, there was no mention of discussion of this. Now on June 3rd, again, the plan has come and there's been no discussion, no changes. And to this day, no one has discussed the need for a fire pit to be placed between two wooden buildings that are on the National Register of Historic Places in a conservation easement whose purpose includes, quote, to protect relatively natural habitat of fish, wildlife, or plants, and to preserve open space and preserve historically important land or structures. My question is, how can we change the process so that we can get a response to our input, or so that there is a dialogue between the community and the committee? The other issue is that recently the process does seem to be somewhat forced and rushed. I believe originally the master plan for Quincy Farm was supposed to be posted on June 1st or so, and the public meeting was to be on June 16th. That meeting was canceled and the date was set for June 9th. The plan was not released until the afternoon of June 3rd. And this gave the public 5 days to review and consider it. How can we change the process so that we also don't feel that this is being rushed? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Next on the list is Natalie Anderson. I've got you registered at 160 South Pennsylvania Street. I'll let you go ahead and announce your actual address as well.
Hi, I'm Natalie. That is my address. I'm not a resident of the village, but my grandmother is Kat Anderson. So I was hoping I could still have the opportunity to speak with you all today.
Absolutely, please.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I also spoke at the Quincy Farm committee meeting, but kind of wanted to close the loop and come and speak with you all today and also speak to some of the things that have occurred with the process. I know you all will also be reviewing the master plan, so I thought it was important to kind of touch on some of those issues with you all today. Specifically, I wanted to address the fact that my name appears on page 5 of the master plan along with our family as participating stakeholders. And that was really concerning to me because I think it implies our endorsement of the plan. And I just wanted to clarify that we haven't endorsed this plan. I wasn't even offered the opportunity to review the plan in its current form. So I was very surprised to find that, along with comments that I made to the consultant, also published without my permission. So during the Quincy Farm Committee meeting, I did request that my name and comments be removed. I also made that request on behalf of Candy Gray, that her name and comments be removed until we can come to more of a, hopefully a consensus on the plan. And I do understand that mistakes happen and this was an unfortunate misstep, but you know, I don't think I think it's tough for the process when things like this happen. And I would also point out that our family's name was spelled wrong where I was referenced without my permission. So, you know, I would just hope that we can try and avoid things like that in the future. I really do want to work toward a collaborative process, and our family is very excited for the day that this will be shared with the community. But I just really ask that you do make the effort to listen to the stakeholders that have made comments, particularly at the last Quincy Farm meeting, and really take those to heart, because I think the current plan kind of missed the mark for the vision of my grandmother in the easement. So I hope that you'll take that into account moving forward as you think about the plan and the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next on our list is John Lear. By way of introduction, I met John earlier last week. He is one of my neighbors and has an interesting idea specifically with respect to the entire village, but possibly also with respect to Quincy Farms.
Yeah, hi, John Lear. Nice to meet everyone.
Tell us your address if you would.
16 Parkway Drive. My wife and I were dumb enough to max out our budget on a fixer-upper, and we've been fixing it up for the past 12 months, and somehow we're continuing to make it work. By trade, I'm in IT sales. I spend my day sending emails and conference calls these days, which is pretty much exhausting by 5 o'clock. Growing up, my dad, he was Superman. He had me selling the vegetables when I was 5 years old. And when I got interviewed by ABC, they said, "What's your biggest competition?" And I said, "Safeway," but they don't deliver. So I was way ahead of my time. I started a lawn mowing business at 9, ran it through college, sold it, somehow got into the sales world. But deep down, I think there's it's super important to understand your roots, where your food comes from, where your animals come from. You know, if we want to talk about everything that's wrong with the world right now, it's not lack of screen time, and it's not our educational system. It's just getting back to some of the roots. Rob mentioned a couple of my neighbors had talked to me and said, "You need to meet this guy Rob." So Rob and I had a call and been talking and thinking more, but I think there's a lot of areas in Cherry Hills that could be good areas for community, gardens, farms. I don't know if anyone has seen the documentary film, The World's Biggest Farmer. I've been into this stuff for a long time, but that kind of sparked my idea. I'm like, why can't we do some fun stuff in the community? I think if this has taught us anything, it's that our kids don't need to be in 6 traveling sports leagues, piano lessons, flute lessons afterwards, and algebra, right? It's more important to think about, I guess, how are we raising our kids? What are the values we're installing them? And whether that's partnership with the local schools, I mean, there's 1,000 ways you can go. Whether it's partnership with the local schools or simply community involvement. I think there's a lot of opportunities to work with Denver Water to figure out irrigation. But we live in the perfect spot. Not many areas in Denver have the land that Cherry Hills has. And I'm way less prepared than my fellow 2 speakers as far as facts go. But I guess I'm passionate about the project. I'd be willing to kind of take it on, spearhead it. And I think thank you for your time. Yeah.
Maybe I missed something. Are you proposing a community garden?
Community garden plus community farm. I think that's, community garden, community farm, animals, chickens, sheep, horses, vegetables, corn, really just kind of going back to the old school farming practice. I think as more and more people start to understand how their food and animals are processed, they would probably never eat again if they actually understood the facts of it. So and what a great educational opportunity to teach our kids. And community. It doesn't have to be just the kids, but the community. There's nothing wrong with rolling up your sleeves and getting some dirt on your hands. And I just think it'd be a really great opportunity. I'm working on a test pilot also with Steamboat. I'm not going to get carried away from my long-term plan, but considering it's just 3 blocks from my house, it's a pretty convenient plan.
Well, as a matter of fact, the film that you referred to, my wife and I did go see that unbelievable film. It was at Chez Artiste for a long time. And we recommended that film to all of our friends. When we came out to our car at the end of that film, we both looked at each other and said, Quincy Farm. Yeah. And I don't know, I feel like I'm speaking out of school with the Cat Anderson's granddaughter here, but that's what, just me, that's what I visualized Quincy Farm to be.
I won't tell you how many times I've watched it.
And the process is, to me, has been extremely disappointing because everything that we've tried to suggest has been met with a big fat no.
I think we got to think bigger.
Yeah, because Quincy Farm could be the kind of community farm you're talking about.
Between all Cherry Hills,
Yeah.
you're telling me you can't get enough kids on internships or just to allocate hours. I mean, every John Deere would give you a free tractor just for the publicity of getting people into agriculture.
Yeah,
It's been a neglected field for years. No one's going into it anymore. And I don't think the answer for our world is more computers and screen time. I think it's getting back to the basics.
yeah, no, I agree. I agree. All the pieces, the physical pieces are there on Cat Anderson's farm right now to be developed in that direction. And I don't know how, as the granddaughter, I don't know how the family feels about going in that direction, but I don't know. There are times when I just want to step back and think, I don't want to be involved because I don't agree with any of it.
Let us go ahead and, only because this is public comment. If somebody would else like to come back either to the podium under public comment, we're still on public comment time. I'll welcome you back up. I want it to be an opportunity for us to hear from you all. It isn't necessarily a time for dialogue. I do know that as a result of the meeting on Tuesday, I believe it was, with the Quincy Farm Committee, that many of the comments that were made during that meeting were heard and recognized. The schedule is not for an ultimate decision on immediate time frame. There is going to be additional discussion and additional meetings. I hope that all of this discussion that we're on the brink of having give and take on is one that we will continue either through Quincy Farms Committee or when it comes to us as review of the Quincy Farm Master Plan before it eventually goes on to the council. But the idea here is to be able to make sure that you all are heard, that you all are incorporated into the process. And this opportunity for public comment is exactly what I think is what we all want to have. The idea of a community farm and a community garden. I know at Quincy Farm has sort of been percolating around the edges an awful lot. So having somebody who's willing to jump in and spearhead it and understands how it works. That's why I asked John to come before us tonight and say, I got a handle on this and I'm pretty good at it and I think it would really work well. And, I'm not volunteering him to be the leader of the idea of Quincy.
Not sure I'm getting myself into, but I'm a pretty good self.
So with that said, I appreciate your comment. Let us go ahead and welcome back Natalie Anderson to the podium. Again, it's our opportunity to hear you all more than for us necessarily to respond to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to come back up. And I didn't read my full comments that I presented at the Quincy Farm Committee meeting, and I would really implore all of you, if you haven't listened to the Zoom of everyone's comments, to please listen to that, because I think that what was said was really the message that was just shared. And the message that I delivered is that I really want to see it be a farm and have the opportunity for animals and have the opportunity for children to learn where their food comes from in an authentic way, not a manufactured way. I think all the pieces are already there. I think we need to focus less on, signage and statues and things that make it feel park-like, and embrace it the way it is. That's what makes it so special, and why it was such a special place to our family. And we'd really like to share, to see it be shared in that way. So I'm very excited to hear that there are other members of the public that are supportive of that, and I would love to continue the dialogue in that direction. And again, I think, a lot of the public feedback that we heard at the last meeting was absolutely in line with that. So we would be fully supportive of heading in that direction.
Thank you very much. I believe unless there's anybody else who would like to come up and have a shot at public participation, I'm looking over, I see Emily.
Yep. Hold on one second. So if there's no one else on your list, we do have one person signed up to participate through Zoom. So just give me a minute to get her unmuted and get her set up. Okay, Jerry, we are ready to switch over to virtual audience participation if you are ready to speak.
I'm ready. Thank you. Hi, I'm Jerry Norgren Neff, and I live in the Hopkins house on Quincy Farm and have for the past 21 years. I researched and wrote the history of the farm, and along with my mother, Barbara Norgren, we co-authored the 2 National Register nominations, which the farm was nominated for and got on the 2 registers. So I am so heartened to hear the talk of the farm, because that's exactly how I envisioned it as well, just to remain a farm. And I'm just going to read a brief summary of what I read at the Quincy Farm Committee on Tuesday. And as Natalie said, it would probably be great if you could listen or read a lot of the comments that were made by people. On page 5 of the master plan, it lists the stakeholders who contributed to the plan. I was not made aware that my name would appear attached to this plan, nor had I ever seen this, the final plan, until it appeared in a Quincy Farm Committee meeting agenda a week ago. I had many unanswered questions from reviewing the preliminary plan, which were never addressed. It is very unsettling to know that my name would be attached as a stakeholder to a final plan I had never seen, lending the impression that I somehow approved or endorsed it. I wish to have my name removed from the document, as well as my comments on page 114, which I was also not made aware of that they would appear in the document. And then I'm just going to read a little bit about history of places and how it pertains to Quincy Farm. According to the National Register of Historic Places, quote, America's historic places embody our unique spirit, character, and identity, representing important historical trends and events, reflecting the lives of significant persons, illustrating distinctive architectural, engineering, and artistic design achievement, and imparting information about America's past. Historic places tell compelling stories of the nation, states, and communities throughout the country. The National Register helps preserve these significant historic places by recognizing this irreplaceable heritage. Its primary goals are to foster a national preservation ethic, promote a greater appreciation of America's heritage, and increase and broaden the public's understanding and appreciation of historic places, unquote. Whether it is a simple cabin, a mansion, a battlefield, or a barn, human history is written all over the American landscape, revealing stories that enrich our understanding of the relationship between people and the land. When the history is tied to the land, as it is on Quincy Farm, it is important to make sure that the history continues for future generations and does not become lost. There are places that matter to all of us, and it is important to connect people to that sense of place. Old places are where our lives, memories, and stories began. They connect us to the past, anchor us to the present, and lead us into the future. Let's not lose our way as we think about the future of Quincy Farm. Serious thought needs to be given to the farm now, as well as 10, 20, 100 years from now. What will it look like? How will it transition through the years? Will it still be a teaching experience of farm life and retain the spirit of the woman who so generously granted this gift? And then there's, on page 41 of the plan, there's a whole lot of errors, which I'll just go through briefly. That page is entitled Understanding the Conservation Easement and Historic Designation. There are numerous errors on the page with reference to the historic designation, which is at the bottom. For clarification, the property is not just listed on the National Register of Historic Places, but on the Colorado State Register of Historic Properties as well, and that should be included. The objectives laid out by both the conservation easement and the National Register in actuality do not conflict, and that verbiage is misleading unless you detail the 2 documents item by item with explanations. The National Register falls under the National Park Service, who guides the program, and although the National Park Service falls under the Secretary of the Interior, it is not the Secretary of the Interior who determines the guidelines. Quincy Farm is designated twice on both the National and Colorado registers under 2 different criteria. It is misleading to state that the farm is designated as a district when that is only half of the listing. Both listings need to be noted. The bullet points under the heading of historic designation need to be written out in their entirety, as they are misleading and easily misinterpreted. Also, all of the page numbers referenced are incorrect. In at least one place, there was a reference to the Hopkins Kadlachek house. That is not the name of the house on the listing, and it needs to be just the Hopkins house. It is extremely important that the history not be misconstrued and filled with inaccuracies, as those things will only be perpetuated if not corrected now. Sadly, it seems that the village's mantra and new mission statement is one I've been hearing for the last few years in various forms. It is a city property. It needs to be open to the public, and we have already spent a lot of money on it, and it still isn't open. Sadly, that isn't a good vision for developing a great plan for the farm. So much of the history of our country has been lost to short-sighted ideas and concepts, only to be realized years later that history has been lost. The stewardship of our historic buildings and land falls to the people who will best honor, protect, preserve, and promote that history, not only of Quincy Farm, but of the incredible legacy that Kat Anderson left with us. Thank you.
Carrie, thank you very much for your public comment. We greatly appreciate it. Like the comments that were made at the meeting, I believe on Tuesday, Quincy Farm is going to take a step back and evaluate a lot of the things that happened on Tuesday, and we appreciate your continued involvement. I believe that goes ahead then and closes public comment.
If there's no one else signed up on your sheet, yes.
Next on our agenda item is the consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from back in March, our last in-person meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes if anybody has one. Looking for a second. All in favor of approving the minutes from March 12th as written, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing no opposition, the minutes are adopted unanimously. Moving on to our next agenda item of unfinished business, we will note that one of our agenda items that was the subject of some of the public comment tonight has been pulled from our agenda in hopes that we can put additional time and energy into that discussion item. That leaves us with the Highline Canal item and the halfway marker, and I believe we're also going to have a discussion from Harriet Lemaire on behalf of the Highline Canal Association.
Yes, so I'll give a brief introduction. So as we discussed back in March, PTRC discussed the possibility of a halfway mile marker for the Highline Canal, which would be adjacent to Three Pond Park. And we have Highline Canal Conservancy Executive Director Harriet Lemaire and Josh Phillips, Director of Planning and Implementation on the line. So I am going to get them set up to share their screens with you and present. So if you'll all just give me a minute. Oh, we have a giant Josh now.
Yeah, good evening to the commissioners, and thank you so much for having us this evening. It's great to be back with you. We've made some significant progress on the Highline Canal sign project since we spoke with you last, and so I think that will be an exciting agenda for future agenda item for future conversation. But for tonight, wanted to bring to you a mock-up of the halfway mile marker. It is a red granite stone that's been selected, and so wanted to run that material by everyone. In addition to note that the orientation of the mile marker, where the tent is facing the trail, will be oriented differently than all of the other mile markers along the trail. And I think, as folks know, there will be 71 new mile markers placed along the canal, and they will be in a red sandstone. And so the idea was that the halfway marker would differentiate in both material with the red granite, in addition to the orientation facing the trail. So this is a mock-up of the mile marker here, and then also wanted to show the red granite material. Just had a couple of samples. It's a supplier from near Lyons, Colorado. And so we would be pursuing something with an unfinished look. So not like the fish, but like the post behind the fish here that you can see on the screen. And then this is a monument in Loveland, a couple of examples from this particular quarry of use of the red granite on an outdoor application. So excited to hear your feedback, and thanks for having us.
Thank you, Josh. I know we also have Harriet.
Hi.
I want to make sure that we give Harriet an opportunity to talk about it as well.
Yeah, hi. We're excited to have this particular really important halfway mark right in the heart of the village. Who would know, huh? They're at Three Pond, and think it's neat that it's a different material and that it's Colorado based and sourced material. And just really want to appreciate my colleague here, Josh, who's doing a lot of work to coordinate all these materials and plans and the interests of all the different jurisdictions to move forward. You know, the sign project that's been, you know, endorsed by the communities all along the canal. I also just wanted to thank all of you for your commitment to the Quincy Farm dialogue. I think that that's a really important conversation that's moving forward for our community. I'm not wearing my Highline Canal hat now, if it's okay to jump back and forth, but appreciate your efforts to support that work. And I want to call out, you know, I think it's really important to recognize the volunteer work that's been done by Lucinda and the other people that have been involved with that for so long. So it's not for lack of really good commitment and dedication that this is taking a long time. I think it's just a very complex effort for the community. And then lastly, I wanted to thank you, Rob, for meeting with Josh and I to talk about the stormwater transition and some of the complexities of that, and really to take the time to dive into that in greater detail, and then offer Josh and I as a resource to come and do a quick presentation to your group at an appropriate time on that and what it means. I know it'll be a discussion point with your master planning committee. It is a discussion point with the planning and zoning and within the entire village. So we'd like to help bring people along to understand what that means, and do a presentation at some point when you have time. I think about a half hour, Josh, I think that'd be enough, don't you? And then we're here for any questions on anything related to this particular halfway marker, or anything related to the canal.
Thank you, Harriet. For the record, Harriet Lemaire is a village resident, and your official title on behalf of the Highline Canal is?
I'm the executive director of the Highline Canal Conservancy, and I live at 16 Cherry Lane Drive in Cherry Hills Village.
Oh, thank you. Commissioners, any comments regarding the mile marker and the designation? It will be located approximately on the canal just above Mead Park, is my understanding.
Three Pond.
Three Pond.
Yep, it'll be
Almost where the bridge comes across.
That's right.
Yeah.
To the park.
Questions, comments from commissioners?
Harry, Fred Wolf.
Hi.
Hi. This is weird. Will the sign have anything on it that says, if we're halfway in between, let's call it 70 miles right now, just for convenience, will it say 35 miles to the north is the northern terminus, 35 miles to the south is whatever that is, McClellan Reservoir, Chatfield? I mean, something to give people a sense of, okay, we're halfway, but what does that really mean?
Well, it says 36.5, but that's kind of a cute idea that you just said. What do you think, Josh?
Well, I would note that there is going to be a wayfinding kiosk located at near the parking area at Three Pond Park. So for a canal user that was interested to see a context map, that will be included on the kiosk. So I think that, I think the mile markers, most of them don't have much content on them. And I think maybe the mile 30, and interestingly, that is, I did catch that earlier, it will be mile 35 and a half. So that's 71 miles, not 36. So I think that might communicate to folks if it's halfway and you have the mile indication on there, that maybe less text is more on this would be my thought, but certainly open to the preference of the commission.
I think it's so great that you guys drew our attention to this when we were in last time. We always knew it was the halfway point, but we'd never thought about putting a marker up, and the board was really supportive of it as well. But yeah, I think we could call it out a little more.
Well, there are quite a few people that I'm on the trails every day that I run into, and a common question is, how do I get to the Highline Canal? And then once they're there, I'm sure they're thinking, what's this? If I go left, where do I go? If I go right, where do I go? And I'm sure the maps that your group has coming up with will point those things out to people so that there's a lot of education here on what is the Highline Canal. So
Now, Josh, I mean, if you all have time and want to see it, Josh could pull up because he's very adept at this. He could pull up close in on one of the maps that will be on the sign because those are currently being designed. We have selected a fabricator, and you can see sort of up close what the map signs, and I know Emily's looked at them already. And there's still quite a bit of back and forth on the details of what will be on each of the signs that that are placed in the village. But I think they're going to be incredibly educational. You know, we're not putting the history of the Highline Canal on the signs, but there'll be QR codes later that'll go on in different areas where people can learn more about the canal. This is sort of phase one of signage. Yeah. Josh, are you able to get that, or am I sort of putting you on the spot here?
No, I just got to switch my screen share.
he's scrambling.
With the,
It's really quick compared to me.
this is just with the generic map, but this is what the kiosks will look like. And so you can see that it will have, the map will be a primary feature. This is mocked up with a stretch by Coven Park and South Suburban Parks and Rec District.
Can you zoom in a little bit, Josh?
On the face of the kiosk here. And so the two kiosks that are proposed for the village would be at Three Pond Park and then at the Dahlia Trailhead over by Blackmore Common. And so at two of the most popular access points along the trail. And so we are really excited for the possibility that we'll provide a little bit more context for users. In addition, we've added, as a part of the most recent mock-up, a context map that will go in the corner here. And since we're sharing this too, I think it's fun to see. This is one that we're working on for Aurora, which will be one of the first jurisdictions to see their trail on a new stretch of trail. And so I'll zoom in here on the context map.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, to show. So this will show you the segment of the trail that you're looking at. And so when you're in Cherry Hills, it will place that kind of perforated box there around that particular trail section, and then call out where you are along the trail. So we're hoping that this will really help to open people's eyes to the reach of this regional resource as it spans across the metro area.
Yeah. And, you know, we have that map and guide that's been completed. And the next step with that is to try to translate that into some type of an app for people that would be accessible on their phones when they're out on the canal too. But I think these are going to be huge. People, like you said, you just said it, Fred, people don't even know that it's a different trail. I know people that didn't even know there was a canal down there below the trail.
I will say, Harriet, based on your recent feedback, we did add in a bit of interpretive information.
Good.
Kiosk, so there'll be at least an introduction to the canal's length and its history as an irrigation delivery system.
The map that you provided is great. Before COVID happened, I was down at REI and actually ran into the book on the Highline Canal that also had the map that people can buy. And I thought, we need to get that book and map available here in Cherry Hills Village for people to purchase if they want to know more about the canal.
We do have
Oh,
we do have the map. Yep, it's in our it's in front of Pamela's counter if you come in, and if the front doors are locked, it's in the vestibule also, along with the newspapers and that type of thing.
But
And
there's a book that goes with it too.
Yeah, the book, we'd be more than happy to have Cherry Hills Village selling those books down there. We want to get people to understand the canal. I mean, our staff works so hard on that. And you guys should know that Connie Brown, a villager, worked her tail off getting double checking, you know, trailheads and access points and spelling, so forth and so on. It was a labor of love.
The guide does require a contribution to the Conservancy for those guides. So the maps we're able to provide for free, but the trail guide itself is does have a cost associated, is why we haven't provided those for external locations.
And each one of you is going to need to get your own map and guide so you can be part of the fall Let's Get Colorado Moving Walkathon, 71 miles in 71 days. Yeah, you, Fred, need to have your own little group of that.
Well, that's 71 miles in 5 days.
Yeah,
Even better.
or two.
This is Commissioner Stephanie Dahl, and I just wanted to tell you, I love I do really like the halfway point mile marker, and I do think the simpler the better, given that you're gonna have these maps and interactive and showing how truly large the canal is, the trail is, because I don't think a lot of people recognize that. So I like the design, I like the simplicity of it and what it stands for, instead of trying to put too much on there, given that you're gonna provide a lot of it, so I think it looks great.
So is there consensus that you feel with the detail on the maps that you don't need more detail on that mile marker? The board and committee, I think, was pretty comfortable with it. Just, we're recognizing our board, they donated money for the extra mile along the canal. And so we want to recognize them there because we felt like it was sort of unfair to give it to one of our founding partners because it was so special. And so we put their names on there, but we could put the details of, 35 miles this way, but it kind of says it at the top in effect. So it's up to, you guys could weigh in on that. We could bring it back to the committee if you felt strongly.
I feel like my position is the simpler the better. It's there for the purpose of being just a halfway point, not as necessarily an instructional marker.
Yeah.
And so to have, we keep having the other maps and everything else that serve as that instructional piece, I just think, my personal opinion is I like the simpler the better.
It might become sort of like a stopping point where people want to touch it as they're walking the 71 miles. Or, have you all seen the little stones that people are putting around? Some of the kids are along the trail, like sort of hopeful, wishing stones that they're painting. I could see just spontaneous interest in doing something special around that particular halfway marker as the years go on.
Harriet, my only comment, Rob Eber here, is that I like Stephanie's idea of simple and easy, but at the same time, it's interesting to me to understand that this midpoint is the midpoint between Waterton Canyon, which is a very long way away.
Yeah.
And yet it goes all the way out to the DIA. And if there was a way to incorporate literally the endpoints of the canal, so that people right there, without having to then go over to the larger map, can understand where the area starts and finishes, and that's all.
Yeah.
It's a point of amazement to me. But I want it done in a tasteful, non-intrusive way, that if we can do that, all the better.
Okay.
And hi, this is Commissioner Kelsey Scott, and just to echo your thoughts, I love the idea of the 35.5 mile marker, because I think that's a kind of a subtle way to make that point, like stopping at the halfway point, 35 and a half miles in, is kind of indicates for somebody who may not realize it's 71 miles that there's a whole lot both to the north and south. So I really like that idea, and also to echo Stephanie Dahl's comment as well, that the simpler the better, with the caveat that, putting in the mileage gives that.
Emily, am I to understand this is just our comment, or is there a proposal?
We're really just looking for feedback from the commission. It's not a vote or anything.
I mean, I think we're hearing that it sounds like a lot of you like the idea. We've heard one person that doesn't like it. Maybe Josh and I can talk to the designers and see how they could do that in a really nice way. And we could just pass back the little visual to everyone, knowing that each time we go back to the designer, it costs us more money, right, Josh? That's okay. It's going to be a special thing. I think it is kind of cool to think it would have an arrow each way pointing. I mean, the thing is that DIA is further than the end of the canal, so it would be confusing, but that is such a, a point, but we could say like 64th Ave or whatever it is, Josh, right? or end of the canal. Another way would be Waterton. I don't know. We can think about that.
I want to say,
Yeah, sorry, we just had a question from an audience member. If we could just read out the size of the posts.
Yes. Switch my share again. All right. So they are 3.5 feet tall, 6 inches wide, and I believe that is all in each direction, 6 inches wide.
The exact same size as the regular mile markers, right, Josh?
Slightly wider because of the stone material, but it's the same height. That's right.
thank you for that question as well. Thank you. Well, have we given you guys the input that you think is sufficient?
Yeah. We'll get back to you.
One more question, Josh and Harriet. How far off the trail will this sign be placed?
Yeah, typically they look for about 3 feet off the trail to ensure there's still a fall zone if there were a cyclist to fall. So they do set them back, but typically between 3 and 6 feet.
Good.
And they're really long because they have to go way down into the ground, right, Josh?
Yeah, so whereas the rest of the sign package will be sunk into a concrete footer, with the mile markers, they're actually almost twice as tall as they look because half of it will be sunk into the ground to avoid having that footer in these locations. So they'll look really elegant, I think, with the stone.
Cool.
Well, thank you. Let us move to our next agenda item, but before we do so, I want to see whether or not part of my chair's report later will be to address stormwater discussions that we mentioned a little bit earlier. I don't know whether or not you or Josh is available to stay on the video to maybe incorporate into part of my report. I'm looking over to Emily with a question of can we keep them on and incorporate that as part of the report?
We certainly can keep them on technology wise. It's just a matter of whether they have the time to stay with us. But I think we'll have them back for the next meeting, I'm guessing, to talk more about the smile marker. So that might be a better time to address stormwater at the same time.
Okay, that sounds good. We'll make ourselves available next time you guys meet.
And we'd be happy to make a presentation, and we have a great video as well. That's a good primer on the stormwater project. If you wanted a full presentation, or we're happy to do a Q&A either way.
We'd love to share the video. I think it's very informative, and it has the head of Public Works and Parks over in Greenwood Village speaking, Suzanne Moore, whom I think you guys would really relate to because her perspective is so similar to Cherry Hills is on the project. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation on behalf of the halfway marker, and we will let you go for tonight.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks for all your
everyone.
work, everyone. Nice to hear you.
Thank you both.
Okay, next on our agenda item of new business, Commissioner Wolf has an item about trail speed limit signs. Emily, are you going to introduce it, or are we turning it straight over to Fred?
I believe the next thing on the agenda is a donation for John Mead Park.
Sorry, I jumped ahead. I apologize. Donation for John Mead Park play area.
And give me just a minute. I'm trying to set back up here. Okay, sorry, it's a little bit of a wrestling to get it up on our screen and the Zoom screen at the same time. So thanks for your patience. So in April, we received a phone call regarding a donor who was interested in anonymously contributing to the redevelopment of John Mead Park. So I worked with the donors representative over about a month to present various types and levels of funding opportunities for the park. And ultimately, the donor was most interested in providing a donation for the play area. We had received a $500,000 grant from Arapahoe County Open Spaces for the play area, so the majority of that was funded. However, our decision about a couple months ago to substitute a different play feature into the play area, that sideways tree climber, did result in some additional expense that was not covered by the original Arapahoe County grant, since we didn't have that in the budget at the time. So that was originally planned to be spent out of the funds that council had appropriated for the park out of the Parks Fund. So that is one item that I presented to the donor, saying that this was an opportunity for funding. And that amount was the total amount of that that was remaining was $26,421.29. In late May, the donors representative confirmed that they would like to contribute that amount for the procurement and installation of the sideways tree climber in the park. Our charter authorizes City Council to accept all donations and gifts on behalf of the city. So this will be presented to City Council on June 16th, next week. But we're asking for PTRC's recommendation first because it is a donation for the park. It's important to recognize that the Parks Division and the city has not received any favors or offered any favors in exchange for this donation. The contribution would be deposited into Parks Fund 30, and it would offset a portion of the amount originally authorized by City Council for the park. So staff is recommending that PTRC recommend City Council accept the anonymous donation on behalf of the Parks Division for the redevelopment of John Mead Park. I'm happy to answer any questions the commission has.
Questions, comments?
Is there any reason not to accept this? Is there any reason not to?
Is that question for me?
For all of us.
No, would be my recommendation would be to accept the donation.
Should I go ahead and I move to recommend that City Council accept an anonymous donation on behalf of the Cherry Hills Park Division for the redevelopment of John Mead Park.
Discussion.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. I just want to make sure everybody first has any other opportunity to provide public comment. Motion has been made and seconded to go ahead and approve it. May I ask the discretion of the person making the motion to just make sure that there is no other comment at all to be heard? Hearing none. Let's go ahead. Motion has been made and seconded to accept the anonymous donation. All in favor of accepting it, making a recommendation to City Council that the village accept the anonymous donation on behalf of the Cherry Hills Parks Division for the redevelopment of John Mead Park, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Unanimously passes. I apologize, I didn't have my microphone on the whole time.
Emily, can you just pass along to the donors representative? Thank you from the commission. Very generous.
Absolutely, I will.
Next on our agenda, now we get to go to Vice Chair Fred Wolf regarding trail speed limit signs. I assume on Highline Canal, but maybe it's on all trails.
Yes. Over the last couple of weeks, I have had, as I say, I walk the trails every day. I've had 8 e-bikes come past me. And that caused me then to familiarize myself with the municipal code in Cherry Hills, which the commission has that language in front of them. It specifically says that you cannot operate a motorized bicycle, e-bike, on any of our idle trails. As I say, and today, I was on the Kent Trail down below the Highline Canal, and a guy came by on the Highline Canal with his feet on an e-bike, his feet up in front of him as if he was on a motorcycle. And he was going very, very fast. Now, what I'm saying is that if the municipal code says it's against the law to operate an e-bike, we have got to get signs up that let people know you cannot ride an e-bike on our bridle trails. They're not going to refer to the municipal code. So I am suggesting that we direct Jay Goldie of Public Works to go ahead and design an e-bike sign, and that sign be put up at all access points to our trails, ASAP. Comments?
We've got a lot of signs.
So
Well-
my suggestion, because e-bike legislation is complicated. Ours is not, but on the state level it is. And also because we have this, not the same problem, but we have another nuisance problem, which is cyclists speeding across the board, especially on the Highline Canal. My suggestion would be to, if the committee or if the commission would like to put up signs, would be to put up speed limit signs rather than e-bike signs. Because it will get at both, it will be addressing both of the issues, which is the e-bike issue and the regular cyclist speeding, especially on the Highline Canal.
Do we know, Emily, we've talked about this in past meetings, and we know that most jurisdictions, if not all, up and down the Front Range are addressing this same issue of e-bikes on trails. Do we know what Boulder, for example, has decided to do?
Yeah, let me jump in only because this has been an agenda item that you mentioned that we have had in the past. We had deferred a involved decision-making pending some of the outcomes and seeing what some of the other jurisdictions were doing. I had attended a Foley County Commissioners process and it was following what Boulder had done. Boulder had elected and it's now about 5 or 6 months into their decision that they will allow e-bikes on certain of their urban trails, but not necessarily their mountain trails. Other jurisdictions, including Jefferson County, have looked at this for some of their open space and they have allowed e-bikes on many more of their open spaces. Under state law, an e-bike, though it is motorized, is specifically considered to be a non-motorized vehicle under state law. There are lots of different legal opinions that because it is a battery, it is a motor and therefore it's prohibited under many of the jurisdictions that allow motorized bikes, but the state has gone the other way and specifically said at the state level that e-bikes are not considered to be motorized vehicles as long as they are under, I believe, under a certain battery power. And we've had discussions in the past about the different strengths of, I don't know how they call them, but it's E1, 2, and 3, I believe it is.
Yeah, so I just pulled up on your screen where Boulder County is with e-bikes. So they're allowing class 1 and 2 in certain parks and trails and prohibiting them in others. So that's where, they came down following their I think it was a year-long study that they'd done.
Correct. So the end result on this is we have discussed in the past that we know there are e-bikes on our trails. We've talked about whether or not village officers should be out there enforcing speeds on our trails, and there are actual speeds on our village trails that are already in place. And it was a discussion sort of resources and ability to be out there patrolling our bridle paths. So what it boils down to for me is maybe a question, not so much of whether it's an e-bike or not, or a regular bike, is we want people to go low and slow on our trails. And until we make a formal determination which way the village wants to go, and we had just sort of postponed that determination on behalf of PTRC as well as overall within the village. If we want to elevate it as one of our agenda items, I think that's a fine decision to make. I don't want to, I guess I'm personally at this point would be not in favor of jumping right into having signs specifically labeled to e-bikes, and instead trying to reinforce the idea through either articles in the Crier, putting on the website, and using the tools that we already have, specifically if an officer needs to be out there with a radar gun periodically to make it very clear for people, rather than actually putting up another sign, because I know we're always sensitive towards the amount of signs that are on our trails. I see Emily's got a comment, so.
Yeah, I just wanted to, so the commission and everyone here has context. Since the pandemic started, we have had officers out, particularly on the Highline Canal, on bikes as frequently as they're available. So if they, if there's an emergency, they get pulled away. If there's something, bigger going on that day, they get pulled away. But our police department has made an effort, because the Highline has been much more crowded, because our regional or our local trails have been so much more crowded. They have made an effort to deploy officers when they can on bicycles. To my knowledge, they've been relying on sort of public awareness, giving warnings, and have not been out there with a radar gun, but they are out there monitoring the situation as much as they're available.
Just by way of question, what is the speed limit on our trails?
15.
15. I knew that, but I wanted to make sure it's on the record so that everybody who looks at our minutes and all of our viewers can actually see that 15 means 15. And
yes.
We all want to maintain safety within the village.
And the new signs that are planned for the Highline Canal Trail will also have the speed limit on them, and the speed limit will consistently be 15, except a section of Douglas County is 20 miles an hour. But for us, it will be 15. Greenwood is 15 and Denver is 15.
And when will those signs come to the canal, please?
The mile markers will be this summer. We're hoping that the other monument signs and maps will be this fall.
So with that done, Commissioner Wolf, I guess I'm asking whether or not you want, is this mostly a question about Highline Canal, or is this all the trails that you've noticed as well?
No, they've been on bridle trails. Half of the ones I've seen are on the trails literally coming by me, and I don't know they're there until they're right there. Yeah. And that's what I object to, because there doesn't seem to be any regard for other trail users when these guys come flying by. So I completely prohibit them, but that's just me.
The other question as far as, is there a way to enforce it by not using manpower? Is there technology there that, I know like in Nevada, they have radar enforced where it means nobody really has to do it. They just see when someone comes by and how long it takes them to get to the next sensor and I don't even know if we can identify those people, but is there a way of doing it without manpower?
Unfortunately, no.
Well, hearing Commissioner Wolf's comments, it is not legal currently under our village code to have an e-bike on trails. Do we want to go forward? And I guess I would like to kind of take a temperature of everybody's. I mean, obviously, Brad has made this as an action item. He feels strongly, and it's a serious issue because we don't want anybody to be hurt. At the same juncture, I want to try and understand whether or not you all want to go to that formality, or whether you want to, ramp up a public information campaign and see where we go from there, and couple it with some enforcement before we go to the sign level, or what people would like to do.
I think it was 5-man electrical band and ping verse signs everywhere, signs blocking up the scenery, messing my mind or whatever. I would want that to be a last resort. I prefer to ask for the public information program through the current. Otherwise, we've got signage as it is. A lot of it, as you mentioned, Emily states the speed limits. I wouldn't want to add additional signs to block up our scenery if possible.
Yeah, and so I would echo that sentiment, especially with some new signage coming out. I guess my question is, though, would these be temporary signs or permanent signs? And I'm asking for 2 reasons. One, some temporary signs were not for social distancing, but also I thought I read in the redevelopment and master plan that there's going to be some focus on separating equestrian traffic and pedestrian traffic. And so I didn't know if that applied to Highland Canal as well. And if it did, would there be kind of a separation anyway, like a bike lane that's being proposed or anything like that?
So it's not being proposed in the master plan coming out. It's a question in the survey that P&Z is still developing. So we're a little cart before the horse, but the preliminary, the draft of the survey that planning and zoning is working on for the master plan does address is there interest in the community of having separate equestrian trails versus pedestrian trails. But right now there is no, we'd be looking for feedback from the community on that. It's not something that's been decided. So based on our discussion, it would be permanent signage rather than temporary signage. I don't think we had discussed, sort of the yard signs that we use. But that the commission could discuss whether there's a preference for temporary signage.
Well, I think the right sign could be placed on our existing sign posts. Yeah, just to let people know it's the bike with the slash through it and note and e-bikes below, something like that. To say that it's 15 miles an hour, to me, that's a joke. Because nobody's going to enforce that. But if you say no e-bikes, then people know, oh, I'm not allowed in here. That's it. It's for walkers, runners, equestrians, and bicyclists, period.
I want to just jump in also and say that under the ADA, and I know that is, not the bulk of the users as well, but we would be seeing motorized or electric vehicles on the canal under ADA. And I don't think that's what we're talking about at all. That is less than 1 in 100 by far.
Yeah.
This is an issue of the recreational e-bike user. And what we had talked about through a number of different meetings was trying to figure out whether or not you could allow, in essence, sort of the slow e-bikes, but this exclude the speedier, stronger e-bikes. And then I believe it was Commissioner Wolf who said, how do you tell one apart from the other at the moment? And so we kind of all, where my recollection of where we stopped was, let's sort of see what everybody else is doing and how it's going before we jump in. Do we want to jump in with signs? I've heard a couple commissioners say they would sort of be a last resort. Fred certainly is ready to have signage. I guess I'd like to know whether or not we want to go forward with signage or whether we want to kind of elevate this as an item for all of us to put forward and make a formal decision on with respect to going to council on enforcing e-bikes or not enforcing e-bikes, or what the village position specifically going to be on e-bikes. And if we're in June, I don't know if that can be done by, what the right time frame is to adequately study it and make a recommendation to council. But, I don't want to disrespect and jump over something that is a serious concern, and it's even a safety issue. So.
Can I ask a clarification, Emily? Because when you read the municipal code, and I understand Commissioner Wolf's statement earlier regarding how the state sees it versus different municipalities see that e-bikes are motorized or not motorized or whatever. the way we are written now and the way I read this is that e-bikes are prohibited. Is there a different way that's being interpreted?
No, that's correct.
Okay.
Under the current city code, you cannot ride an e-bike on any of our trails.
Okay, so unless someone comes forward and says we want to have e-bikes on the trail, currently we are not allowing for e-bikes on the trail. The question then I have is, what is the communication that has been done around prohibition of e-bikes on the trails?
I don't think that we've done any specific public awareness campaign or anything related to e-bikes, because when the issue first came up a while ago, the commission's position was, let's wait and see, you know, as Boulder County studies it, what they come up with and what the results of them really studying it are. So at that point, we basically hit pause, and most of our public awareness campaigning about parks and trails right now has been, you know, COVID related, has been 6 feet apart, has been, you know, please wear a mask if you can, you know, that type of thing. So, so we could certainly put together, you know, a social media campaign and put something in the crier and, you know, make it more prominent on the website, because I don't think it's anywhere prominent on the website right now, to try and get that level of awareness up and see if that might make a difference in the number of people appearing right behind you, Commissioner Wolf.
Because do we also know how many people who are on the trails with e-bikes are village residents versus outside? Because that's, I think, a different, we can tell our residents all day long, you're not allowed to have an e-bike, but if they aren't our residents that are on the trails with e-bikes, then that really does us no good. So, I mean, my personal opinion would be that we start with communication before we start with truly permanent signs on all of this, but in trying to get information about who's on our trails, how often they're on our, like what really level of enforcement do we need? Because I echo Commissioner Wolf in terms of we need to make sure that our residents are safe when they're on the trails, and that, you know, if something comes up and hits you from behind at 25 miles an hour, or a small child or something like that, that can cause really serious injuries. So we do need to be protective of our residents. At the same time, I think we need to be thoughtful in how we approach, because I don't even know if we know who we're going to try to speak to regarding this.
The good part that I am hearing is that your comment that it's actually on bridle trail as well as the canal. We don't necessarily do a huge amount of publicity of our trail system, and I think we're pretty comfortable with the idea that bridle trails are geared largely and used largely by citizens, certainly not exclusively. But my hope is that should we choose to do an amped up awareness plan or action, that might address some of our concerns. You know, no matter how much you publicize, people are still going to speed on major roadways. You know, you just hope that on our trail system, people understand what they are, and maybe if it's within our Cherry Hills Village confines and media that we can use, that maybe we can have some progress in how to do that.
Well, if we don't do something, folks, this is meaningless. The language in the code is meaningless. So.
I do like the idea of public outreach. It's a step forward. And I understand, Fred, your concern, and I wish it was a great solution. People consistently break the speed limit everywhere on any vehicle, all over the place, and it does upset me. And I do stay within the speed limit myself, but 2/3 of drivers are swerving around me. But I do think raising the awareness of having citizens kind of enforce it on their own if they're more aware of it, reaching out and letting everyone know who is a pedestrian or using the trails appropriately is a deterrent. I myself would call someone out and yell at them if they were speeding. I don't know if I would do anything, and I don't have a perfect solution, but I do think public outreach is a great step forward. It's something And maybe we need to take more time to figure out better solutions and see what other jurisdictions are doing.
One of the things I'd like to direct Emily and Pamela, if you would, is could you please check with other folks and just see if we have any reported cases of actually injury as a result of, or what kind of injuries are we seeing on our trail system? And they may be that they're not reported, I don't know. So I'm asking you to kind of get a handle on, well, Fred was scared and I've been scared and many of us, like all of us agree about the public safety. Is this a fear of an injury or are they actually happening? And then can we ask you to give us that information next meeting?
I will certainly bring it if it's available, but I'm not sure that it's available. I'm not sure that we would have a record of it.
Or whether or not our police, for instance, have been called to any incidents on.
Yes, and I can
Trail,
certainly
or
check on enforcement related activities on trails.
This might be a tough question, so I apologize, but can we also come with information on how fast these bikes can go, like 1, 2, 3, and then also, I'm not a biker, so I apologize, but an actual cyclist on a motor, how fast can they go too? Because that is information I don't know, so I don't know if it's truly an e-bike issue or if it's a speed enforcement issue, and I'm not saying we don't address both, but I just don't know the information enough to make a decision on that.
Well, I think it's important to know the obvious that this is two separate issues. They're very closely related, but you can easily go above the speed limit on a regular bike, and you can easily obey the speed limit even on the most powerful electric bike. So you can say no E3s, but there could be very responsible people that have E3s and go 10 miles an hour when they're on the trails because they know that they still obey limits. So it's two separate but related issues.
My recollection was also one of the reasons that we put a little bit on pause was as the canal is increasingly becoming a regionally used asset, and believe it or not, people are commuting on the Highline Canal. Obviously then time and speed is a factor. But the concept of with Hampton Underpass going in play in the next number of months, and people using the canal to go not just through Cherry Hills, but in and out of Cherry Hills. I think it brings up the question of what is the correct way to manage speed on any trail, whether it's the Highline Canal or some of the more remote bridle trails.
So my suggestion would be just to address Commissioner Wolf's urgency for this concern, which I agree with. That was why I mentioned the temporary signs, because it addresses the urgency, but also the uncertainty at the moment. So while there's all this increased traffic now and people may be commuting now, that may or may not continue for a long time. Also, I believe that people really recognize something new. Like when the social distancing temporary signs did go up, I think that they made an impact because they were colorful and they were new. But then it could be a temporary solution with possibility of something longer, deeper.
So there's a lot of data that shows that those temporary signs, like for instance, the flashing sign on Bellevue where you're going east towards University, it flashes if you're above 35 or whatever the speed limit is. That actually does change behavior. So you can put that up for a little while and take it away and people still remember and tend to slow down in that area. So you could do something on a temporary basis and perhaps have an impact.
Let me ask whether or not a temporary measure, because we do have speed signs that they put throughout the village. If we wanted to locate those, periodically moving them around throughout the different bridle trails, I know they're geared largely towards paved roadways, but what would happen if we did that or recommended to council to deploy? I don't think we have the authority to make that decision right now on our own, but if we could make a recommendation that there be some periodic efforts to either have radar out there or the pedestals or something to kind of get people's attention to. And I'd like to couple it with the amped up education program and see where we get, and then maybe July revisit the idea.
The other nice thing about those is my recollection, because we had one brought into our neighborhood, because we had talked about having speed bumps today. Like, no, but, I think they record the data, which would be helpful, because then we can see, is this a daily problem with multiple people who are speeding on our trails? Or is it a once every couple of weeks issue that would maybe give us a better, I'm not saying it is, right, because I know you've been out there multiple times, but I think it just gives us better data to take to council to say, look, this is how often this is happening, this is why it's such an urgent problem.
I would note also, following Aaron's comment, you know, you can have a speedy regular bicycle, you can also have a speedy horseback rider. And, you know, the equestrian rider trails, some of them are nice and open and you can really gallop along, and some of them have some curves in it that you have to be careful of. With that said, let me ask you, Fred, do you want to formally push a vote on putting up signs, or would you prefer to withdraw the concept of a formal signage and try and do a temporary coupled with some educational outreach? And I would just mention also, one of the outreach and educational things would be to formally say, hey, e-bikes are not allowed in Cherry Village Trails. Did you know? E-bikes are not allowed. Do not ride them here.
So I would agree with the educational issue as well, as a suggestion to just agree with what you're saying, that I don't think it really knows. And I don't think it really knows the feeling. So I do think that there is absolutely a lack of information out there. So, yeah, the educational piece is another great suggestion.
Yeah, I think that would be fine, Rob. Let's try something to bring the awareness to people. And information. The guy that I saw today going very quickly, that was an adult. The other ones I've seen are basically high school kids.
And we have had a couple of phone calls from young people asking whether e-bikes are allowed. And that when they call, we let them know that they're not allowed on any of the trails in the village. But so we have fielded questions recently. So hopefully I'll take it as my direction right now to really start a public information campaign on our social media website and the village crier. I'll be able to get something in the July crier coming out in a couple of weeks. So we'll move forward with that, and I will bring some more information back to the commission at the next meeting as well.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you. Good topic and good discussion. I
Thank you.
appreciate that, everybody. Next on our list, I'm going to again turn sort of upside down a little bit. Let's have commissioner reports first, and then I'll jump in before staff does. I'd like to take an opportunity to welcome Chelsea Scott as our newest commissioner. Welcome. If you'd like to take a couple of minutes, tell us a little bit more about yourself, and if you have anything that you'd like to try and focus on, and welcome you to the commission. Let us know what it is, and we'll entertain any other thing you have to say for a report.
Great, I appreciate it. Well, thank you very much for the welcome. I'm really excited and proud to be here, so I appreciate it. So my background is, I've been in real estate for probably 22 years, mainly in analyst roles, I've been in land acquisition and creative market studies for communities that are thinking about development. So I came to the city expressing an interest in wanting to be more involved, and then this position came up, and I felt really fortunate to be able to join this commission. And part of the reason is that a passion for me is the environment. It's super important to me, and I'm also now on the board of the Park People, which is a city and county of Denver initiative, which we had a meeting this morning to help them continue to build and grow trees in the city and county of Denver. And I had expressed them an interest in maybe moving on to rapidly and allowing them to not in other counties in addition to the county of Denver. So that was an interest. And I've also reached out to the Claw Club. at Trailville Elementary to become a parent liaison for that initiative as well, and kind of find a way to help the green and the sustainability movement within the city. So that was part of what I was interested in when I shared in my interview. I really am a huge fan of the whole farming and community gardening piece as well. So that's very much an interest, and I'm just really interested to hear what is happening in the village and how the trails and the community is really getting here. So thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Commissioner Leviton.
I didn't have anything initial to say, but I did want to address our speaker about the farms idea. I think since most of our land is private, and a lot of it, including my own, is quite suited for what you're talking about, that rather than just focusing on Quincy Farm, which is such a quagmire at this point, to reach out to private residents is to open up their land for similar usage. So I applaud your efforts and support you as best I can. That's about it.
Any Zoom concerts or anything on the performance side that you've been working on?
I finally got to play in public mass last Saturday night. I streamed it. I was working with, trying to work with Laura and Jessica about ways of making it seem exclusive to Cherry Hills Village. And the problem is if it's a Zoom or it's a live stream, someone halfway across the world can watch it. It's not exactly a community-based program. So we're still working on that to make it like exclusive to Cherry Hills Village. But I am taking students for virtual lessons if anyone wants.
Thank you. Commissioner Gall.
For the 75th anniversary, I met Emily and former Mayor Chrisman, and we kind of had some discussions that was pre-COVID. So I'm looking at Emily to see, has that event been canceled? Are we rescheduling?
I will jump ahead a little bit into my reports, but we are tentatively planning to go ahead with the John Mead Park Grand Opening 75th anniversary celebration on September 26th. It will be an outdoor event, but yes, at this point, we don't know. We'll be looking at the health information that's in place at the time to determine the scale of that event and really how it will be held. But right now, we are tentatively planning on moving forward.
So yeah, we had some discussions about what that will look like, and I'm sure it will be ever changing. So once more details come to light, and share it with the commission.
Thank you. I'm going to jump over Vice Chair and come over to Aaron and see where we can go from there. I have nothing specific. I'm going to jump back out, Brett.
Prior to COVID, I presented the trails plan to City Council, re-signing the trails. And I came up with 8 distinct trails within the village. And I have completed the signage of half those right now, 4 of those. So as soon as all this delay here in our lives is past us, then I guess we will see some additional signs go up, identifying these 8 trails. So we're working on that.
Thank you.
And please don't forget, we have Commissioner Murphy with us on the Zoom call.
I apologize. Sorry, Commissioner Murphy. Why don't you jump in, please?
No worries. All's good.
We want to see you.
Correct. We like your smiling face, and it's hard to see behind the mask, but nonetheless, nice to have you with us.
Thank you. And welcome. I didn't catch the new commissioners, Chelsea.
Scott.
Okay, welcome. I think we'll be sitting next to each other. So.
Thank you so much. I look forward to meeting you.
And I'm sad to see Peter go.
He's gone.
Okay, I'm
It didn't take long. He grabbed his plaque and ran as fast as he could. You what?
Oh.
Let me jump in a little bit. a number of different items to just sort of mention and go through. When last we spoke and talked together in March, we were eagerly looking forward to the 75th anniversary celebration of the village. Obviously, with all of COVID, that was postponed. Nonetheless, I want to belatedly wish the village a happy birthday. All of our residents, all of the people who take part and participate within Cherry Hills Village deserve to understand the magnitude that 75 years as a city and maintaining our semi-rural atmosphere is a pretty important thing to have done. So happy belated birthday to the village. And a lot of the activities, as Stephanie mentioned, we're going to try and continue to have. And in the meantime, know that and be proud of the fact that when you can answer a trivia contest, that you know exactly how old your city is. And that the actual date was, am I correct, May 10th? I want to mention secondly that there are a number of things going on within the master plan. As we've talked a little bit about before, and there is action within our looking at master plan for PTRC activities within the village, but also the village overall is doing its updating to the master plan. And there is a number of discussions. There is a citizen, I believe it's called Citizen Advisory Task Force, that a number of people have been asked to sit on that will provide recommendations to planning and zoning, I believe it is. Planning and zoning is by statute required to be the entity who updates the overall village master plan. So I urge all of us, as well as all of our public citizenry, to become involved in the master plan. It's our village. It's a wonderful opportunity to help make a dedication towards interest of what is important to us and see that we put it in there. And, you know, for instance, one of the things that Harriet Lemire mentioned and I believe needs to be in play is many of the different environmental pieces specifically related to having Quincy, having the Highline Canal continue to be a wonderful resource benefit that it is to the village right now. It is, I believe, our #1 recreational asset in terms of use. We are fortunate that we are one of the very few places in the entire Highline Canal, and that is at Quincy Farms, where we actually own the underlying Highline Canal. Denver Water owns the canal in most places and has arrangements with the different municipalities. But thanks to the advanced planning of Cat Anderson, we actually own the actual Highline Canal. And so as the Highline Canal Conservancy is moving towards implementing its plan, one of the things that I think about, and I've discussed a little bit with Emily and I throw it out there for all of you to think about, is whether or not we can have that piece of the Highline Canal in particular, but also the other reaches of Highline Canal actually become very important holders of water during the stormwater process so that it can continue to have a rich tree canopy, rich wildlife experience. And so I want to mention that I will be involved in an awful lot of the activities to use the Highline Canal and would like to continue sort of to be our liaison on stormwater issues. Right now, the Highline Canal Highline Canal Conservancy is anticipating that they will have different, what I guess I'll call check dams at different points throughout the canal in a way to try and help stormwater runoff be contained and safely dissipated. One of those anticipated check dams is actually on Quincy Farms, right before it crosses underneath Quincy. And so the idea there of being able to have water in the canal is only an additional historical use that the canal was able to make within Quincy Farms. I noticed one of the people in the audience tonight is Lisa Carlson. She and my sister used to ride their horses in the Highline Canal back in the day when there was water in it all the time. The ability to have water in the Highline Canal, I think, is a wonderful possibility for the village. It's a wonderful opportunity for stormwater and flood control impacts. And actually having a check valve at Quincy Farms may in fact add to the ability to recharge some of the aquifer. I know we have a well at Quincy Farms. All of this plays in together about the idea that I would like to see stormwater become an actual and important component of the master plan, and only because if not only because the Highline Canal is historically been such an important recreational feature to all of us. As we heard at the very beginning of the meeting with the public comment, Quincy Farms itself is doing its own master plan. It has been a multi-year process, notwithstanding some of the comments that we have heard tonight, and I don't mean to minimize them at all. There has been a number of meetings, a number of public meetings, a number of publications. It only goes to reinforce the idea that the master plan for Quincy Farms is one that is important and ongoing, and I urge all of us to urge all of our friends and neighbors to be very involved in that process. I do want to take a moment to recognize in the back of our audience is Lucinda Green, who currently chairs the Quincy Farms Committee. I want to thank you for the many, many, many hours that you work on behalf of Quincy Farms and on behalf of the village to try and keep Quincy Farms moving in the right area and in the right way. And I know we're going to get to the way that we're all happy with the outcome. But I do not in any way want to eliminate the wonderful or minimize the wonderful efforts that this committee has done on behalf of Quincy Farms over its many years. As a result of having Fred as a mentor to all of us, and also because of COVID, I have really upped my participation and use of village trails. Thank you, Fred. I haven't had to cross paths with Fred, but that's a good thing because I have young dogs now that make a lot of noise wherever they see people. But that issue aside, I hope to see you all on the trails. I will take a moment to say how wonderful the trail system is. Many thanks to our city staff for all the hard work and effort that you all put in to make it so that we have this wonderful amenity on behalf of all of the village residents. And I will also use this as an opportunity to chastise my fellow trail users who decide to either A, not pick up after themselves or their dogs or pets, or B, pick it up, take the time to put it in a small plastic bag and then throw the bag on the side of the trail. My hope is that we all can do better than that, and our trails deserve better than that. And with COVID right now and the trail system being so incredibly heavily, it's up to all of us to leave it cleaner than when we came onto the trail system. So that's my speaking from on high and lecture for the moment. I do want to talk a little bit within the fact that right now, and I hope it hasn't dissipated already, but a couple of days is something that never happens anymore with the canal, and there was water in the Highline Canal. If you haven't gone to the Highline Canal yet, is it still in the canal?
Yes.
Go see something that's wonderful and doesn't happen anymore, because as many of all of us know, the Highline Canal is made as a water delivery system, and it isn't delivering water very much anymore. And I just learned the other day that the last place from the canal that diverts water is right where the canal and Mansfield, just south of Hampton, is. Apparently, Cherry Hills, Buell Mansion is the last diverter of water from the canal along the system. It used to go, as we obviously know and heard earlier, all the way out towards DIA and deliver water. But there is no user anymore north of the diversion point right there at the Highland Canal in Mansfield. So take yourselves out, see something very rare, see something that's really wonderful, and see that there's water in the canal and enjoy it. I'm gonna just mention, and I know Emily's gonna talk a little bit about it. We're in the process of seeing the Hampton Tunnel, I call it, underpass, come into play. Many of the issues that we've already talked about tonight. If you think there's a lot of folks on the trail now, just wait till we have easier access from everywhere else. I also want to mention the idea of programming. I've been approached in the last number of months quite often by a number of people with questions a little bit about whether or not the village can offer programming environmentally. I usually included in that discussion a referral to the Cherry Hills Village Land Preserve, and many thanks to them for their many programming efforts that they already do on behalf of the village. But I also know that Commissioner Leviton, you've been working on some of the different ideas of the additional programming within the village. And I do think, and I do sense that whether it's trail walks or whatever it is, there's a number of different activities that all of us can help do on behalf of the village. I mean, a number of people have talked about beekeeping and wanting to have lectures about how they can do that. I know our earlier public speaker, John Lear, has 14 chickens that he has at his house. And on many of my walks, I see many of you all have chicken coops in your homes. So, you know, chicken coop or chicken keeping 101 is a wonderful activity and programming to have. If you have talent, leave a program. If you want to attend a program, let's see if we can get it started. The other part that I will close on is near and dear to my heart is I feel very saddened by the fact that I'm standing here or sitting here at the podium having to wear a mask, where most of all of you cannot see that I'm trying to smile an awful lot. But when we walk around in our day-to-day lives, because we don't know what's going on in the other people, and we don't have that ability to pick up on the visual signals, neighborliness may be a casualty of COVID. On many hands, we're starting to see wonderful things happening for many of our neighbors. And then on other hands, I do notice on many of my walks, people are trying to get out of my way as fast as they can. They want to maintain not 6 feet, but they turn and they don't let my breath come anywhere near what could be their breath and things like that. So I just want to encourage people to make wonderful use of our open spaces in the trails, but do them politely, do them friendly. It's not too hard to greet people and say, hello, how are you? I hope you're having a good day. Stay safe, whatever it is. So I want to remind all of us on this commission, as well as our members who are listening, and put it in our public address program. Do not ride your e-bike, and smile and be friendly to your neighbors. So thank you. Let's go ahead, Emily, staff.
My first report is really a question, a housekeeping question. We typically don't have a July meeting, but since we have missed so many meetings and we have a lot coming up, I wanted to check your availability for the regularly scheduled July 9th meeting and make sure we would have a quorum for that meeting, or if it needs to be rescheduled.
I am available.
Okay. Thank you all very much. Oh, and
Is the next
Commissioner
question, do we have
Commissioner
any
Murphy.
agenda items for that
Hold
meeting?
on one minute. Commissioner Murphy, are you available on June 9th?
Yes, I believe so. We
so.
are going to take, we're supposed to be going to visit Mark's family. If not, can we do this by Zoom?
Yes, we should be able to.
Okay, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have agenda items that would merit our continuing to meet on in July?
We might.
Okay,
So I wanted to make sure at this meeting to be able to schedule that in advance.
thank you.
So thank you all. My next report is John Mead Park construction. It is moving along very well. It's been able to continue through COVID with people wearing masks and social distancing. So Allen Hutto Memorial Commons at this point is almost complete. If you peek through the fence, we have the sod in the center, all the trees are in, the path is in, the performance area is in. We'll just be waiting. We have native seed on the outside of that sort of lasso shaped path. So we'll just be waiting to establish that native seed. And at that point, we might be able to take the fencing down on that side ahead of the larger parcel on this side. So trying to make that available to the community as quickly as we can. So it looks great. I'd urge you to kind of peek through the fence if you can. And then on this side of the park, the shelter, the restroom is in place. The shelter will start to go up within the next few weeks. The observation tower will start to go up in the next few weeks. So, and our trees are going in right now. So it's really starting to come together. The fishing piers are complete. The boardwalk is complete. So we are on track to be finished end of August and do our grand opening, provided we can do it, at the end of September. So we'll really look forward to that. Any questions on John Mead construction before I move on? Okay.
No question, but many thanks.
And next on my reports is the Hamden, Colorado underpasses. That project is moving along well. The Colorado underpass, they're anticipating doing full weekend closures of Colorado first and then of Hamden to be able to get the Colorado underpass in first in 2 weekends and the Hamden underpass in second in 2 weekends. So right now, those closures for Colorado are scheduled for the weekend of June 19th to the 22nd, next weekend, and June 26th to 29th. So it would close Friday evening and reopen, I think, late Sunday evening. So we'll be posting that as much as we can on our social media, trying to get the word out. And then the Hamden closures, they're anticipating for July. They don't have specific dates yet. So hopefully the end of the summer, we will have both of those underpasses in. And then the city's project is to create the path from the Hamden underpass to connect and put that bridge in across the High Line. So rather than dead ending at Hamden, you'd be able to turn and go across the bridge. So we're working on that and we'll probably be putting it out to bid shortly. So that's all moving along. Did you have a question, Commissioner Wolf? Oh, okay. The next item is probably at the next meeting. I will bring to you all, Jeff and I have been talking about the idea of rather than doing bench donations, because as we've been finding over the last year, we're starting to run out of places to put memorial benches. We are considering doing a possible tree donation program. We're working out all the details and logistics of that, and it was really kicked off by sort of an initial request that we have that we're still working with the family on. So for July, I might be bringing you a request both for a tree donation and a proposal for a larger tree donation program in memory of people. Did you have a question?
I do. I had a question that as part of my newfound interest in walking all of our different trails.
Yes.
It occurred to me that we have many benches in our actual parks, but not many along the traditional rail trails. So our newly signed village trail, as you go west of the canal along what would have been Mansfield, that portion of the trail has no benches along it. I guess question, do we have a policy that disallows benches going along those trails? And if not, we can also encourage people to consider them the same way they do other parks.
There's no specific policy disallowing it. Our interest just tends to be more, people want it in a park or somewhere prominent rather than tucked away. Though we had an initial request for a bridle trail that was then rescinded for, I don't know the reason, but there just tends to be less interest, but there's no specific policy preventing someone from doing that.
And so my only comment would be is when we're doing our outreach, we can include the idea that, sort of again, did you know? You can make a donation for along our bridle trails in addition to being in our parks. And maybe that'll foster a place for lazy people like me to be able to sit down.
They are nice to come across when you come across one. And lastly, Quincy Farm Master Plan. So Tuesday was the first time that the Quincy Farm Committee got together to discuss the first draft of their master plan. So they did receive a lot of feedback at that meeting, and they'll be taking the time to go through all of that feedback and address it. Well, not necessarily address it, to sort of synthesize their thoughts ahead of their next meeting, which will be on June 30th at 8:15, which is a Tuesday in City Hall. So they will be working through those comments ahead of the meeting and then discussing a lot of them at that meeting. And those are all my reports.
Thank you very much, Emily. Emily, you're very quiet and I can't see you on the other side of the area there, but I want to close by, again, thanking our city staff. You guys do yeoman's work. I do have a quick question, and that is, what is our status with city manager transition?
Yeah, so City Manager Thorson graciously extended his tenure with the city because of the pandemic. He would have been retiring really smack in the middle of it. So his last day with the city, I believe, will be July 31st. And I don't have an update at this time as to who the new city manager will be. But I will let PTRC know as soon as I do find that out.
The other thing I would like to close by is recognizing the many of you who are in our audience participation area and have participated tonight. You've sat through a long meeting. We did not generally have our meetings as well attended as you all have made it tonight. Thank you for helping us do our jobs as well as be able to communicate to you some of the different ideas that we have about what we do. I appreciate your involvement. Stay the course and keep involved, and then we'll all get the right decision that we can all be proud of. No one person is going to get everything that we want, but I think that collectively we will get open space programs within the village for which we can all be incredibly proud. So thank you. Keep staying involved. With that, I will entertain a motion for adjournment. And knowing no opposition, I deem us adjourned. Thank you all.
Take your mask off and smile at the camera. There you go.
Well, frankly, it's a ugly mug, but notwithstanding that. I mean, Brendan's out all the time. But